So it's fight week, Riyadh season. Moses Itauma versus Dillian Whyte. It's been a slow burner, this one, until now. There's been a lot of consensus that Dillian is an old lion, old dog, old wolf, past his best, and that Moses is basically coming to do a job on him, or that Dillian's being fed to Moses so that he can buffer his CV and on his quest to greatness on the kind of 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗡𝗪 career fast track, shall we say. Now, that's an oversimplification. It wouldn't be accurate to say that it's an old guy versus a young guy without digging a little deeper. And yeah, whilst you've got youth with Moses Itauma and enthusiasm and exuberance and just general positive kind of, descriptions and whatnot. On the other side with Dillian, he has been in and around the top of the game for the best part of, 8 to 10 years. Now, there have been blips in that time frame due to kind of topics that we won't discuss here. And, anyone that's got a mild knowledge of boxing knows what I'm talking about. But there have been some gaps in his CV, as in, activity-wise. Now, when Dillian's active, he's dangerous. He always has been. He's always been a go-getter. He's always been someone that comes swinging to take your head off with that left hook. And he doesn't really mince his words, doesn't really over-egg the situation with regards to a game plan. There were times when he seemed to have quite a few trainers in the post-Mark Tibbs era. He had quite a lot of people in his corner, and that sometimes can seem a little bit complicated in the sense that, you've got more than one voice. I think he had one of Lennox Lewis's ex-coaches in the midst of Javier Miller and a few others. Right here, right now, Dillian's got himself back in ship shape. He looks tight after looking a little bit out of shape in his recent outings versus 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗍 and Hammer. Before that, there had been no fights for 2023, I believe. He had 2 fights last year. Again, didn't look his best. So this is where the bandwagon's rolling for Moses Itauma. Everyone's like, yeah, of course, the young gun on the hot streak's going to blow him out of the water. Of course he is. And there are some attributes that look great on a highlight reel. And we've done some here ourselves here at Boxing Highs. You've got youth, you've got speed. You've got definitely a sharper, at least to the eye, boxing ability with Moses Itauma, the way he's come through. Dillian didn't come through the ranks like that, winning all the youth championships, etc. Dillian actually had a kickboxing background and kind of tripped into boxing, for want of a better phrase, and then cut his cloth and did well because he's robust. He's a fighter at heart. He may have a kickboxing background. He's a fighter. Whether he's a classical boxer, I don't think anyone's really trying to sell that. Moses Itauma looks like he's got all the tools, the classic tools, even though he's a southpaw. So without that one kind of, all right, he's not an orthodox fighter, he does do a lot of things. Check on the list to you want to be seeing as far as jabbing, foot work, head movement. There are a lot of crazy comparisons being made. Now, we'll take all the hype out of it for a minute. Let's stop. He hasn't tried to break Mike Tyson's record now. And, bar being a southpaw, and he has got good head movement like Usyk. But when I say like Usyk, meaning that they've both got good head movement. I don't mean that he fights like Usyk. No, it's not like that. Yeah, good old couple. Look, we've been on this Riyadh season bandwagon from the start, baby. And yeah, you got a young lion taking on an old lion. Now, as someone who watches loads of nature programs, you'll know that sometimes the old lion has still got his teeth. Sometimes the old lion just ain't ready to give up the territory. Sometimes the old lion says, F this, I'm going to show you why I'm the old lion. You ain't got the experience yet. You ain't got the know-how yet. The know-how in the midst of a war, in the midst of, which is essentially a turf war when you're inside the boxing ring. But Teddy Atlas always talks about real estate. Unless you're completely fighting at range throughout the whole fight, which not many heavyweights can or do. I mean, Fury did a masterclass of some sort of range fighting against Klitschko from very far and very close without much middle range going on. But Moses Itauma being explosive, again, the comparisons to Mike Tyson, albeit to the very crude comparison, okay, both shorter, stockier, explosive guys, but, you know, Tyson had the 𝗙𝗘𝗗𝗜𝗪𝗪 style. Moses doesn't have that. I'm not quite sure what style Moses has yet as far as putting it into a pigeonhole within a textbook. He has somewhat Olympic style, which is very, you know, textbook, but then he's a southpaw, and he also goes for knockouts. He's a cold and heartless finisher, but he hasn't really had to face anyone that's willing to meet him, fight him on their terms, or drag him into deep waters, into the trenches on his terms. He even said it in an interview himself yesterday with the face-off with Dillian. He said, if I stick to the game plan, it should be enough. He didn't say enough to do what? Enough to win, of course. He is alluding to the fact that he acknowledges that Dillian's coming to do his job, is coming to put his best foot forward and have it, basically. And he kind of suggested, he being Itauma, that if he gets dragged into a dogfight that Dillian could get the upper hand of, then he hasn't stuck to the game plan. Now, even that phrase, sticking to the game plan, is very idealistic, very simplistic, and in the perfect world, we would all stick to the game plan in everything in life. Whether it comes to me setting up my lighting in here, you know, not having a car crash, you know, not forgetting your keys somewhere. In a perfect world, everything's perfect. Boxing is, again, to quote Teddy Atlas, is a chamber of truth. Meaning that there's not really many places to hide inside the square circle unless you know how to measure every inch of it in a photograph in your brain like Floyd Mayweather. But not many guys have got that Shakur spatial awareness. Not many guys have got that, you know, super long reach like Fury, where they can keep you far all night long, or, you know. So we are where we are. We're looking at an ex-kickboxer who became a top 5-6 heavyweight in the world and challenged against Tyson Fury after waiting a very long time at the WBC as interim champion, versus a young gun who's won everything at amateur level. I think British, Worlds. He won at least 3 different competitions as an amateur. Didn't have loads of amateur fights, but won everything he entered. So, yeah, in that sense, there's another difference between him and Usyk. Although there's the kind of, you know, Itauma's half Slovakian, so there's some Eastern European overlap connection, the footwork, the head movement, the southpaw. You know, Alexander Usyk had 300 plus, or around 300 amateur fights. Itauma's had 20-something. Dillian had none because he was a kickboxer. Excuse me, I've got something in my eye. Now, Dillian's definitely got some advantages. Experience is the obvious one, but another one is also size, I believe. And if not to oversimplify and say power, because a lot of people don't know that power and strength are 2 different things. Power is strength times speed. So power is how you can deliver that strength with speed. So that would be the difference in the gym between someone doing a muscle up is powerful. That's displaying powerful strength, right? Someone bench pressing a heavy amount is also power, but if they do it really slowly, that's more about how strong they are, not about how powerful they are. So in layman's terms, if you explode the bench up on your PB, you're powerful as well as strong. If you're like that, you're strong, but you might not be powerful. There is a difference, guys. Go and, for all the little nerds out there, go and get your chat GPT and see what the difference between power and strength is. So I would maybe say that Dillian might be stronger than Moses because he's bigger, he's older, he's got his man strength. But Moses might be able to deliver more power to two knuckles, whether it's the outside two or the inside two. That is where it's kind of the stiletto analogy, right? So the reason getting trod on by a stiletto is so painful is because you're putting so much force behind a small surface area, so it hurts your hand, right? A lot. A sharp object. Sorry to get all like physics and gym tech today, but Dillian, again, being a crude fighter, being a guy from the streets, wasn't refined like that. He learnt his stuff, as he always said, I'm learning on the job, and he did learn on the job. To be fair to him and Mark Tibbs, and later on with his strength and conditioning coaches and whatnot. I big up my boy Mark Finlay as well, ex Great Britain runner himself. Used to be a running mate with Dwayne Chambers way back in the day. I think he's been involved in Dillian's camp on the back end. Top S&C, Mark Finlay, based out there in the Lee Valley Centre over in Clapton, East London. So Dillian's in tip-top shape. That goes without saying. Moses is the younger, fresher, potentially hungrier guy. Now that's the question. Is he hungrier just because he's younger? Does being young make you hungrier by default? It makes you more enthusiastic. It makes you more optimistic. It makes you feel like anything can be done. You know, that David Goggins reset. Go hard, go home. Let's get it. Let's get it. But let's not forget, Dillian Whyte was always the any man can get it. He always called himself the can man. Any man can get it. Now, like I said in my 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗓𝗪 rap freestyle, Dillian's at a crossroads. Can't really afford another loss, bro. Essentially what I was saying there was, if this ain't last chance saloon for Dillian, it's definitely one of his last chances to get right back at the big table quickly. Because Moses is being fast-tracked to be the next guy, right? Again, another lyric from a freestyle. The next king of the game. That's why everybody's singing his name. So, got to get a few little ring wraps, plugs in there. So Dillian could ruin the party. He could upset the apple cart. Is it last chance saloon for Dillian? Realistically, it is probably one of his last chances right now in this Riyadh season era at his age to be at the big table again as a player. Because one thing's for sure, with Turkey hitting the accelerator on the boxing game, especially a heavyweight scene, I predicted that they're going to burn through the roster quickly, and they have done. They've burnt through, and all with the notable exception of Joseph Parker somewhat being overlooked or looked past by the suits. Maybe because they think he doesn't sell enough tickets in UK, or he's not enough of a controversial character. Now, Dillian's definitely that. Dillian will definitely spice it up for you. He's playing the victim's the wrong word, but underdog role this week. Reluctantly, by the way. Reluctantly playing it. But playing it well. He's not quite got into full bad guy, panto villain, heel for the WWE documentary guy. He's not quite the heel yet. But he's willing to play that. He's been the lone wolf. He's been the body snatcher. We shall see if he is the body snatcher. If he's still the body snatcher, meaning he's going to be ripping to the body, and Moses doesn't use his feet, his youthful energy, his movement. If for whatever reason Moses stays in the trenches and gets into like an all-out war with Dillian, it could be it could be an issue. It could be an upset. Although anyone who's watched enough of any sport on boxing would know that these kind of crossroads career fights are exactly that. They're not called a no entry for one fighter. They're called a crossroads, you know? So it's kind of like that. Like, Dillian's meant to be doing that, and Moses is meant to be doing that. So they're meeting at a crossroads, and it's like, who's going to come out and get through to the next stage? If it comes down to a slick boxing match, then 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗓's going to be favourite because of all his natural boxing skills, and he's just that bit fine-tuned right now. He's in a groove with his coach, and Ben Davison, his other head coach. Dillian, he could do it. He could pull off the upset. He could pull off the upset. He could pull off the upset. If it gets into a fight, it could be a problem for 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗓. Although, the smart money would say, well, to be honest, for me, if I'm betting on this fight, I'm just saying the fight don't go the distance. That's what I like to do on these fights where it's heavyweights and you still get good odds for picking like rounds 1 to 5 or 6 to 10 or whatever. I wouldn't necessarily pick a winner because you won't get much value on Moses unless you really think Dillian's going to do the business, in which case you pick Dillian unapologetically and you just wholeheartedly say, yeah, why not? I'm going to pick Dillian. I'm going to pull off the upset and get to the bag and win the money. So guys, I mean, I said a lot to say this, that it's the young lion versus the old lion. But ultimately, we're going to see which lion wants it more on the night. Which lion's got enough tough hair on their neck, you know. Which lion's mane is darker. Because the lion with the darker mane generally has the winning day when it comes to passing on to the next generation in that territory. So let's see. I personally think it's going to be an explosive fight. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if Dillian makes this attritional and ugly from the get-go. Having said all of that, if Dillian even does still try to like lean on him, hug him, tie him up, jab and grab, I do still expect some inside work and roughhouse from Dillian. Whether it's the shoulder, you know, he did headbutt accidentally or deliberately. He did headbutt Joseph Parker all those years ago. And Parker stayed in the fight because he's tough. He's got a chin. But Dillian knows what he's doing. He's an ex-MMA kickboxer guy. He knows what he's doing in there. 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗓, don't feel like you need to feed the beast, bro. Don't feel like you need to show Turkey what time it is. Don't feel like you need to light up Riyadh. There's going to be times to do that. Dillian definitely ain't going to be feeling he needs to do that. Dillian, if you do the business and you do it in style, what can anyone say? You're back. You're back. You'll be looking at rematches with AJ and Parker, maybe even Fury. You're back. We know you're like you're everyone's after Chisora. You're another guy that everyone loves to hate and just loves to watch because it's the bad guy, isn't it? It's Dillian Whyte, body snatcher. Moses Itauma versus Dillian Whyte this Saturday in Riyadh on DAZN. Ring Raps Boxing Highs. Cheers.